if you were living in Israel at that time, they were still having solemn assemblies. So they were still having their, if I could say it this way, their worship services. Are you tracking? They're still having worship services. They're still offering sacrifices. They're still singing songs to the Lord. They're still praying. They're still going through all of the motions of what we would read back in the book of Leviticus as to what God said, how the children of Israel were to worship Him. They're still doing all of those things, mechanically speaking. But notice what verse 21 says about how God viewed all of their ritual, all of their practices as far as what they would call worshiping God. Notice what He said in verse 21. I what? Wow. That's strong. I hate and I despise your feast days, and I will not smell your solemn assemblies. Though you offer me burnt offerings and your meat offerings, I will not accept them. Neither will I regard the peace offerings of your fat beasts. Take thou away from me the noise of thy songs, for I will not hear the melody of thy viols. But let judgment run down as waters, and righteousness as a mighty stream. Have you offered unto me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness 40 years, O house of Israel? But ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch, and Chion, and your images, the star of your God, which ye made to yourselves. Therefore will I cause you to go into captivity beyond Damascus, saith the Lord, whose name is the God of hosts. So in all of their worship services, and all of their rituals that they were conducting, that they would say is their worship of God. Listen, they would say we're still worshiping God. Of all of that, God says, I hate what you're doing. I despise what you're doing there. So if I could say this, if there's one thing we can draw from this, there's many, but if we could draw one thing tonight that we're going to kind of hone in on, it is this. God hates vain worship. He hates vain worship. And let's be honest about it. There are people still to this day and hour that profess to worship God. But if we were to look, if they were to inspect their worship according to the Scriptures, it falls underneath that characterization, and we're going to look at that tonight, that description of what God actually says He despises. He hates. It's worship that's done in the name of God, but when God looks at it, it's vain. And can I go ahead tonight and just remind us of something? When it comes to worshiping God, God is the one that decides whether or not the worship's acceptable or not. Like, we don't go, you know what, God, this is how I'm going to worship you, and you're going to like it. Whether you like it or not, you're going to like it. It doesn't work that way. God has He's a person, isn't He? He's got a personality. He has things that He likes, dislikes, things that please Him, things that displease Him. And so you really, can I just say, you and I, human beings, we're not left to define worship to ourselves. Like, that's not something we get to define. God's the one that decides what's acceptable to Him, what's pleasing to Him. God's the one that decides whether or not He's going to receive that or reject that.